Still getting used to saying that, but I do enjoy it immensely. Heading out on the road this week to Minnesota first and out to Toronto for a long weekend there and battle in the AL East. But, of course, NFL camps are open. The Ravens welcoming in a handful of fans through the weekend out in Owings Mills, and John Harbaugh getting them in pads. This is going on throughout the National Football League. Here to talk all things NFL as camps open. He wrote a piece for Sports Not, but he also writes for Forbes as well as Yard Barker and a couple other places. You can find him out on Twitter at Vincent Frank NFL. He is Vincent Frank out on the West Coast. What's going on? Happy camping to you, Vincent. Great to have you back on, man.
How you doing, Nestor?
I'm fantastic. It's football season. We got a first-place baseball team. This is a rare sort of overlap for some hope with the Ravens and certainly some relevant baseball for the Orioles here. But in a lot of places, the NFL is the big business, and this is sort of the kickoff of the season, right?
Oh, it is. It's awesome. You know, you had Packers open up camp yesterday with the veterans and the rookies reporting, and you know, like I said in the article, it's like a new spring for football teams. They're all 32 are an equal playing field. Patriots haven't been crowned anything. The Seahawks haven't been crowned anything. And you have teams like the Browns, the Jaguars, and the Raiders who, hey, you never know what's going to happen this year. So it's exciting, much like baseball in March. You know, you don't know what's going to happen in the upcoming season. And it's a really exciting time.
Well, I know for you sort of encapsulated in one piece out at Sportsnut and out at MSN, one issue for every team. You know, I think that's a really good way as a fan when I put on, you know, the NFL Network or ESPN, trying to get a vibe on everything. What's the biggest issue everywhere? And certainly for the Ravens, it all starts with Joe Flacco and his health because they're not going anywhere without him, but there's a lot of moving parts in the soap opera that the Ravens are going to become over the next 5 or 6 weeks.
Well, if you look at it, they had, Flacco, Forsett, Smith, Perriman, obviously, and Suggs must have combined 52 games last year. Right? No team is going to overcome that amount of injuries and make the playoffs. So it's not a surprise that they had their worst season in about a decade, and it's all about these players staying healthy. Kamar Aiken is not a number one wide receiver. I mean, he put up good numbers last year, but it was out of necessity. He's a good number 2 or a good number 3. So Steve Smith needs to stay healthy. Perriman needs to come back and actually play on the football field as an NFL player.
Well, I mean, we got a lot of that going on through the league, too. Injuries and rookies, right? And Perriman, while not a rookie, he is a rookie, and the Ravens have their own rookie class. They have their own free agent class. You know, there's just great stories, I think, throughout Owings Mills, just in one team, and we're going to cover that upside down. But around the league, there's stuff going on everywhere. Our first opponent are going to be the Bills in Week 1, right? I mean, they've got their hands full with things, and just really trying to figure out whether Tyrod Taylor is going to be able to lead them to 12 or 13 wins.
Well, you know, Tyrod Taylor had a great 2013 season. He really did. But it's really not going to amount to a hill of beans this year unless Sammy Watkins stays healthy, unless LaShawn McCoy improves off of what was up and down first year in Buffalo, and Carlos Williams. Listen, this guy was overweight in camp. He blamed it on his pregnant wife, which, I mean, I guess I can understand to an extent because of what she's eating and you're eating what she's eating. And then he's suspended 4 games.
Well,
for violating the league's substance abuse policy. I mean, these players that have been suspended, they're really impacting their team and their team's ability to make the playoffs.
Yeah, well, we've had that here, you know, more on the fringe with a tight end getting thrown out and safety, you know, getting himself off the field again and Will Hill. You count on these guys. And the offseason comes, by and large, though, been a relatively quiet offseason for the NFL. I haven't seen Goodell have to have a press conference in feels like a couple of months now. And this isn't an offseason where they had the ultimate tumult with 3 different franchises going to one place and only one of them winding up making their way there. Chargers have their tails between their legs as a franchise. Raiders still trying to figure things out in Vegas. All of that sort of off the field in the business, though, kind of goes away the next 4 or 5 weeks. It really is for the Ravens about, hey, Perriman, are you going to get on the field? Let's see the draft picks. Let's see how our big left tackle looks in these preseason games. And the preseason games, as you well know, that's fool's gold, right?
It's fool's gold to an extent, but you do want to see how Ronnie Stanley is going to play. I mean, I didn't have him before even everything happened with Larry Tunsil. I didn't have much below Tunsil at all. Listen, Stanley was the number one offensive tackle in the nation heading into the 2015 season. He didn't do anything to dispel that. It's just Tunsil played so well for Ole Miss. The issue there with Stanley, and obviously we saw with Baltimore, they'd have really a huge team in a row, but Stanley's not a great pass protector. He's a great run blocker. He's going to have to improve as a left tackle. That's exactly the role he's playing as a rookie. He needs to improve from the pass protection, especially with Joe Flacco coming off the torn ACL.
Another question for the Ravens. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You don't need to have pass rushers have a free run at Joe Flacco's blind side coming off a torn ACL.
Well, and then the question is who's going to run the ball, right? And if you're trying to take pressure off of Flacco, running the ball will be everything. And there's not just question about Justin Forsett coming back and age and durability and all that stuff, but they have a whole litany of young bucks who have been sort of circling around on the backside of the Ray Rice issues a couple of years ago, looking for an opportunity, and they've continued to draft guys and give them opportunities. Running the ball made all the difference in the world 2 years ago when the team started to have success, and that was all built around Forsett, who was as shifty, as thoughtful, and as well-timed a runner as I've ever seen in the NFL.
Yeah, and he was actually a really good fit for what Garrett Kubiak did in the zone blocking. I think that Forsett's starting job, even if he's healthy, is in jeopardy early. Kenneth Dixon is a heck of a football player. You know, this guy, 5'10", 215 pounds. He packs a pretty big punch for someone that size.
Well, and I think Buck Allen was also a guy last year that they were waiting to step up, and he had the fumbles and found himself on the bench as well. They've tried, they've continued to try, and I'm sure that Dixon's going to get some opportunities here early on, and that probably is with the preseason, right, where, he will be running the ball a little bit more. You'll be able to see a little bit of that flash and that spark, and maybe some instincts here early on for how this line's going to operate.
Yeah, and it's definitely fool's gold. Like, when you're looking at, I want to see how Flacco performs. Well, Flacco's not going to play much, especially after the ACL injury. Steve Smith isn't going to play. And there's no reason to play Steve Smith. We know what he brings to the table. Justin Forsett, you're really not going to see him much. But it is the kind of Dixon, the Ronnie Stanley, hopefully the Brashad Perriman of the world, that you're going to want to see perform.
He is Vincent,
perform at a high level.
He is Vincent Frank, NFL, out on Twitter, life liver, beer drinker, and as well eDraft head editor, out looking at all things draft. But it's NFL season. He'll be writing for Forbes, Yardbarker. He has a preview, a top storyline for each NFL team heading into training camp, available now at MSN.com as well as SportsNaut. And he's out on the West Coast right now getting ready. For the West Coast and for LA having a team, certainly I don't think it's going to be a very good team there. But very, very fascinating to see the NFL come back there. It's going to be a big deal in 6 weeks when the rest of the country is on to the fact that, the Rams, look, they're playing at the Coliseum. Look at that.
Yeah, that's the thing that, I focus on that in the article is it might not be a great team, but it's a crying shame that the NFL did not have a team in, the nation's second largest media market for 2 decades. Outside of this costing billions of dollars for the NFL, which was a huge business mistake on their part, we were outside west of the Mississippi. Where were the rivalries? You didn't have Seattle and San Francisco maybe for a couple of years, but that was because of the head coaches. We don't see a lot of rivalries. Oakland, San Diego is not a huge rivalry. It's going to be fun watching the Rams and the 49ers reboot the rivalry of the 1980s and the early 1990s. That was one of the most hard-fought, intense rivalries in football when it was taking place in the 80s and the 90s. It's going to be fun. Both teams are not going to be good this year, but it's going to be interesting. Having football in Los Angeles is something that most of us have been waiting for a long time. You might not notice it as much on the East Coast, but we've been thirsting for it out here on the West Coast.
We are on the line and checking all storylines around the NFL with Vincent Frank. He is Vincent Frank, NFL. You can read his work out at SportsNaut. For our division and for where there's, I love some Steelers news when bad things are happening to Le'Veon Bell, right? We're waiting for bad news out of Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. We don't have to wait for it out of Cleveland. It'll just come, man. But Cincinnati has certainly emerged as the team to beat every year. They've had some offseason losses in a way that Marvin has managed to sort of stack guys together there, sort of kind of the way that he did in Baltimore in 01, where it was an amalgamation of 4 or 5 good drafts and keeping guys together and signing the right guys to second contracts and never letting the players you want leave. He kind of has had that the last 2 or 3 years. It hasn't been enough to sustain them in January, but it sure has made us get our feelings hurt out in the Queen City a couple of times here as Ravens fans.
Yeah, Cincinnati's been one of the best drafting teams in the NFL over the last 5 or 6 years. And, that's why they're able to withstand some of their losses. That's why they don't have to overpay. Mohamed Sanu getting what he got from Atlanta, that's an absurd deal. You watch Cincinnati and Sanu play, he's not that good of a wide receiver. Now, Cincinnati probably would have been best off trying to retain Marvin Jones because he could have been a very good number 2 opposite A.J. Green. Now it's going to be Brandon LaFell, Brandon Tate, the rookie from Pitt, Tyler Boyd. That's the biggest issue for Cincinnati. Listen, A.J. Green was not that good last year.
Well, then the question is about the quarterback standing upright and being able to win in January. They had the game won without him, right? I mean, so we can look at that and say, well, at least it looks like they have a backup quarterback that can win a playoff game at this point. The whole meltdown, I think that will get replayed, right? That will get retried in the media right on up until they win a couple of games. But we have not heard the end of that fiasco at all. I mean, matter of fact, I'm sure it'll be regurgitated tons over the first 6 weeks of the season.
I bet fans, and I know you guys hate Pittsburgh, but I bet fans in Baltimore are loving what happened with Cincinnati in January. I mean, they gave the game away out of idiocy. That's exactly what happened. They had that game won. They gave it away, literally handed the game to Pittsburgh. And, you don't trust Andy Dalton in January. I don't trust A.J. Green in January. I definitely don't trust Marvin Lewis in January. Now you have Adam Jones. Now you have Latavius Murray. How are they what is their mentality going to be when it comes to crunch time? Not only in January, but listen, they play Pittsburgh twice. How is that going to turn out? Any suspension for Burfict or Jones, it's going to hurt Cincinnati. I like Cincinnati to win the division. I'm not sold on Pittsburgh now that we have Latavius Bryant for the whole year. We have Bell for 4 games. I like Baltimore to compete with Cincinnati for that division if
Pittsburgh, it feels like they've already suffered their most, devastating injuries before the season's even begun, right? I mean, they got guys that might as well be injured. They're gone. They're not going to be able to contribute. That's a great loss to their offense, and it's one more year on Roethlisberger, who played brilliantly last year.
He did. You have issues with the offensive line. Can D'Angelo Williams, 33 years old now? Can he fill in for Le'Veon Bell like he did last year? I'm not too sure of that one. Marcus Wheaton's in number 2. Was Bryant out for the entire year? Again, not too sure about that. And then you have their 2 edge rushers. First, they drafted, 2 edge rushers in the first round over the last 4 years. These are players, and Jarvis Jones being one of them, who have recorded, a combined 7 sacks last year?
Non-factors, yes.
Yeah, you have Bud Dupree and you have Jarvis Jones. Hey, they run a 3-4. Their defense has been predicated on pressure from the edge position outside linebacker. You don't get that. Now you have your cornerbacks, William Gay, Ross Cockrell, Tanquez Golson. Come on.
Well, the secondary is really the story there, but the teams like the Ravens haven't been able to exploit that. The Bengals can.
No. The Bengals do. The Ravens haven't, and that's where Perriman getting back healthy is a big thing for Baltimore. That's also where someone like Kenneth Dixon or Buck Allen, if they can create a solid running game. And I'll throw in Justin Forsett. He was a one-year wonder, but it was a darn good year. I'll throw in Justin Forsett. If he's healthy and they can get a running game going, Flacco has, I think, the best arm in the NFL. So you can get the ball downfield, and you can definitely exploit that with Pittsburgh. So, it looks like Cincinnati is the best team. But if you're looking at between Pittsburgh and Baltimore right now, I would say Baltimore ahead of Pittsburgh based off the suspensions and the issues with getting to the quarterback and covering the wide receivers.
He is Vincent Frank, NFL on Twitter. You can follow him out at Forbes, Yardbarker, and at Sportsnaut, where he has a season preview and a team-by-team needs package out there. Last thing for you, Carolina, I would think, is still perceived as the best team in the NFL, despite the Josh Norman thing and everything else that's going on in the offseason from Cam Newton losing. By the way, he was in Baltimore playing volleyball last week across the street from where I live.
He got spiked by a woman, I saw.
Yeah. I mean, but he's out there. I mean, what can you say? He's out there competing, and we know the competition last year, how good he was, how full of himself he was come January, how he got his nose bloodied by Peyton Manning out there in Santa Clara. This is going to be an interesting bounce back for the whole franchise because I was out in the Bay Area. They all thought they were going to win. They really did. They thought nothing was going to get in the way. Now they have to come back and climb back from that. That's a character builder, and he's going to be in Carolina for a long time. Seeing them answer the bell and come out of the gate 3-1, 5-1, 7-2. I think everybody's kind of expecting that from them this year.
Yeah, and it has to act as a character builder. Listen, I've been a Cam Newton apologist when he was called immature, when he was called this and that, but what he pulled after the Super Bowl was crap. They said he was upset, but so has all the other 49 quarterbacks that have lost Super Bowls in the past, or even not 49, but yeah.
I've never been a big fan. I'm not the apologist. I've been the hater, in modern parlance, although I've showered no hate on him. I just don't like the way he plays. I don't like the way he carries himself, and I certainly would have seen that meltdown coming. I talked about it all week before the Super Bowl, and he lost, and we saw what it was. I don't know that, and then we saw the no apology tour after that. So, I mean, that's just who he is, and I'll just choose to root against him instead of for him. That's just kind of my little Hulk Hogan WWE thing, But I do respect the fact that he'll probably win a Super Bowl before it's all over with. I'm just not sure if it's going to be this year.
I'm not sure it's going to be this year, and I'm not sure he needs to change his mentality in order for that to even happen. But listen, with Carolina, Josh Norman, despite what he says, I think was a product of Carolina's system. They played a lot of safety high coverage. You're not going to see that in Washington. So now he's going to have single coverage. Let's see how much he's burnt over the top. That was not going to happen in Carolina with the way Carolina's defense schemed against that possibility. But look, you're having Zach Sanchez, you're having James Bradbury and Daryl Wollery. Those are three cornerbacks they drafted during the spring. To go with Robert McClain at corner, and now you don't have a pass rush. Charles Johnson had 1 sack last year. Coney Ely had 5 during the regular year. He had a great Super Bowl, but half consistent is he. So you don't have the pass rush there, and you don't have the corner play. Now again, going back to Pittsburgh, that's not a recipe for success in today's NFL. And in that division, Jameis Winston was his 2 big wide receivers in the running game there. New Orleans is always going to put up a lot of points. And Atlanta, they still have talent on offense. So can Carolina outscore their opponents? Can Carolina put up 30-plus points when the other team scores 28? We saw it sometime last year, but again, you focus a lot on the defense, which is set for regression. So not only do I not think Carolina is the best team in the NFC, I'm not sure they're going to win that division.
Well, then Tampa Bay's coming too. We'll talk about Jameis Winston a little further on down the line. Vincent, always great to check in with you, man. I know it's a busy time of the year for everybody covering the NFL. Certainly news and stories happening on a daily basis now, and we'll get to these lousy, god-awful preseason games in 2 weeks. I get the tickets in the mail, and I get so excited. Then I get there, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot. This sucks. I'm glad I only get 2 of these here. No. Exactly, right. Hey, man, great having you on. We'll be following your journey out there at Sportsnaut as well as at eDraft and at Vincent Frank NFL on Twitter. Appreciate you, pal.
Thanks a lot, Nestor.
There he goes, Vincent Frank. Forbes as well, Yardbarker. He's out there covering all sorts of things. I'm out at nasty at WNST.net. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, including our Facebook Live platform now, as well as WNSTV on YouTube. Anything you miss, you can find in the morning newspaper at 7 a.m. The WNST morning newspaper is powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in great shape. There's one right around the corner from you. I guarantee it. And last but never least, any breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And Dennis will be here from 3 until 5 this Thursday, driving you home, talking a little sports, getting you ready for training camp and some first place Baltimore Orioles baseball. I'm Nestor. This is WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports. WNST, Tass in Baltimore.